My name is Barb Funk, and I'm David Smith's sister.
Hi, I'm Mary Smith. I'm Dave's mom and one of the founding mothers of Southwinds.
We're here today at the Sheridan Station Square celebrating David's 50th birthday, and for most people that's a pretty monumentous birthday to be celebrating, but for David it's actually a miracle. David was born with a seizure disorder and has been through quite a bit of trauma through his life in terms of brain operations. David had his 11th brain operation when he was 3 years old, and at that time had the right lobe of his brain removed. Through a lot of therapies and a lot of medical intervention and a lot of love from my mom and dad, David has become the wonderful person that he is. Dad always wanted us to live in places that were conducive to David's education, and so they always lived within a reasonable distance so that David could go to special schools, and he went to the best of the best schools growing up. And when we lived in New York, David traveled an hour?
At least an hour.
Yeah, and that was the closest that we could get between my dad's job and David's education, and he traveled an hour each way to go to school, and it was really good for him. And then in 1974, when David was 12, we moved to Pittsburgh, and that's basically where David grew up. I'm the youngest. I'm 3 years younger than David, and then my brother Bruce is
56.
6 years older,
Mm-hmm.
I think. He's 6 years older than
Right.
David, so the three of us growing up. But a lot of it was just David and I, because Bruce was so much older that by the time David and I were in our teens, Bruce was in college and left for school and never came back. He just started his life, and so it was always David and I, and it was wonderful growing up. I mean, even though David had a lot of physical and mental disabilities, I never noticed. My parents tried to keep things, quote, normal for us, and they loved to go camping, and we went camping a lot up in Vermont and New Hampshire, and Mom and Dad bought a travel trailer so that David could have a bathroom right there, and it was really nice. And so some of the best memories that I have of David growing up were the two of us going camping. David never walked until he was 8 years old, and so my dad had to carry him everywhere, or I would pull him in a wagon, and that's just what we did, and we just made
normal.
it.
It was normal to us.
It was normal. I remember as a kid walking around our neighborhood, and David had many operations outside of his brain operations, but I remember one year he had one on his leg and was in a full cast, and was in a full cast for quite a long time, his entire leg, and Dad would pick him up, put him in a wagon, and off we would go, and David and I would go out into the neighborhood, and that's just what we did. He loved to travel. We used to have station wagons when we were kids, and David and I would sit in the back and sit in the very back where the glass is of a station wagon, and we'd make funny faces at the cars going by, and he thought that was hilarious.
As we said, Dave and Barb were about 4 years apart, 3.5 years apart, and Barb came along very unexpectedly and surprised us being a girl, which was wonderful, because now I have my girl. But Barb was developing so beautifully and so normally that it helped Dave understand, and Dave just idolizes Barb. Barbie this, Barbie that, just admired her so much and still loves her very dearly today.
He had such determination and such passion for everything and everyone, and I've never seen him angry or spiteful or jealous or anything. Everything is always so grateful, and I think we could all learn from that.
So when it was time for Dave to leave home, I was so happy. I was so happy and sad for him to leave us, of course, but I think I knew Dave needed to be away from Mom and Dad, and that was perfect for us. So he developed into a very fine young man.
It's so easy to look at someone like him and have pity, but yet, to me, it inspires me and makes me realize, what are you complaining about? He does it with such joy. To me, it is like the most amazing birthday to think of all the things that David's been through. He's had, he had those 11 brain operations. Like I said before, he was 3. He had his 12th brain operation in 2004. He's had many operations on his different limbs to help with spasticity. Just most recently in November, he had back surgery. He's been through so much, and it's a miracle that he's alive, let alone thriving. And again, I think a lot of it has to do with he has such a great support with his family. He has great support with Southwinds. Southwinds is his family.
Oh, yes.
And so why not have a celebration where we can invite everybody? And when I originally started talking about planning this party, we thought about, well, how many people? And I thought, well, how many people live in Southwinds? How many people work for Southwinds? And that's where we got the number. There was 150 people between his family, his friends, staff, and I thought, that's 150 family members. And one thing too is that David's never going to get married. He's not going to have a wedding. He didn't have a graduation party. He's not going to have a retirement party. This is his day, and this is his celebration, and this is his moment, and I want it to be the greatest thing ever. One of my favorite stories of David is when David was 21, I was 18, and I went to Clarendon University, and I transferred there, so I had already been a sophomore. I went to community college, and I went to Clarendon University, and it happened to be the exact same time that David moved into his house at Southwinds. And I moved into a dormitory in the middle of the school year, so it's already hard when everyone's established their friends. And I called everybody. I hate it here. I don't know anybody. I'm so lonely. And I would talk his ear off, and I said, David, I'm so lonely. I hate it here. And he said to me, Barbie, if I can do it, so can you. And it was the most wonderful thing, because what do you say to that? It's just like he moved into his home and I was moving out on my own, and he was happy, and he's offering me the support that I needed. And I thought, you're right, Dave, I can do it. And I did do it, and so did he. I ended up coming home after that. I moved home for a couple years, and David never did. He's been on his own ever since. So.